In making World War II, we knew we wanted to be very, very realistic to the time period, and we also wanted to have our sounds reflect the grit and destruction that happened during that war. So we really focused on recording a lot of very, very realistic, albeit amped up sounds to fit that kind of time period and to fit the mood there. There was a lot of back and forth about trying to figure out the right place between like the super realistic but also the hyper realistic, because oftentimes the sound when recorded does not sound the same as after you have finessed it in your computer and finessed it in the game to make it sound a little bit more Hollywood, to make it sound larger than life. I actually started out in pinball, which is kind of bizarre because I'm not, as old as some of the people who started out in pinball. But before I was doing game audio, and I'm including pinball in game audio, I was actually working in music recording studios and also post-production studios for television. And I kind of got sick of doing that. The hours were not great. The money was not that great. I didn't really feel like I could make a career out of that. So I was at my barber and I was telling him about that, like, hey, this recording gig, it's not that great. I'm, fun because it's close to music, because I was a musician growing up. And it sounded like it would be really cool to get into games. Like I was playing games and the sounds are really awesome. And so as I was telling him this, he's like, hey, actually, very coincidental, but I cut the hair of a guy who's also doing games, and it was this guy, Chris Granner, who makes sound for pinball, and he still does that to this day. And so I gave him my school demo and showed it to him, and he gave me some critical feedback, which was really great. And then about a year later, he called me up and he said, hey, I have a little bit of extra work to work on the Lord of the Rings pinball. Do you want to come and help me out with it? So I said, yeah, of course I do. So I started working with him, and that's kind of like how I started to get into games. One of the things we worked really hard on was the destruction system in World War II. The destruction system is very, very dynamic, and it's all real time. There's very little pre-baked state changes in the destruction. It all happens very dynamically. It was a really hard technical feat to try to figure out how to make the most realistic destruction sounds, for instance, like when a building was collapsing. It's really, really hard to simulate the audio physics of destruction on that magnitude, because every little brick is going to make a sound. And that took a ton of iteration and a ton of time and a ton of tech support as well. But I think in the end, we did a really good job of making that sound really great. So outside of work, I'm a big music head, so I like to go to shows as often as possible. I try to go to 2 a month-ish if I can, depending on what season it is. I used to be a musician, I used to be a DJ, I used to do all of this kind of stuff back in the day, but I don't so much anymore. I also really like to play basketball, and I really like to go snowboarding. And in fact, we have a lunchtime basketball game here at work that I play once or twice a week, which is super fun. And then I have a couple games in San Francisco that I play. I'm Matt Grimm, and I'm the lead sound designer here at Sledgehammer Games.